What are we calling bullshit on today, Marie?
We are calling bullshit on relationships don't end, they fail.
No.
Bullshit.
I'm
No.
calling bullshit on you.
Yeah, that's what we're calling bullshit on. Relationships don't end, they fail. And
Oh,
someone
oh, oh.
taught us
Okay.
that endings were failures. And I don't think that's true. So it's like when you say, "Oh, like "Ugh, I broke up with my boyfriend, I'm getting divorced." People often like go, "Oh, man,
I'm so
I'm so
sorry.
sorry." And someone taught us that an ending is a failure. So I'm calling bullshit on endings needing to be failures. They're not.
They're not. I think
Relationships don't end and fail. They just end.
they're just endings. And oftentimes it's really sad. And sometimes it's a happy ending. But I agree with Marie that it's not a failure. It is just a chance to start new with the wisdom that you have before. So you're not really starting over from scratch because you're starting from experience now. You're starting with some experience from that ending. And we believe that people come into our lives for seasons, reasons, or a lifetime.
Or a combination of two or maybe three. Because we had, have like those relationships sometimes, like mine. They like started and then they ended and then they come back.
Well,
And you're like, why is this happening?
I'll,
Why
I'll
are
tell you
we?
why. I mean, in my viewpoint, is because I believe that our souls have contracts. That's just how I, through my spirituality and stuff, I just believe that we have contracts and we have karmic relationships with some people. And I think that when things end abruptly or with things unsettled, a lot of times we didn't fulfill that soul contract yet.
Right.
So people come back into our lives because we didn't learn the lesson yet. There was more to give, there's more to get, there's more to learn. And then we kind of recycle, so to speak, some of those relationships, or it's because it's comfortable.
Yeah. Are you calling me out? I
Yes.
feel
Calling you out on your bullshit today. I do the same
I
thing, so
feel
it's fine.
affected.
I'm not.
You didn't say anything that should make me feel so insecure about this, but I definitely feel insecure about it.
Because oftentimes we do that, right? We recycle back to what was easy or comfortable, and then we fall back into these patterns that oftentimes are self-sabotaging, but there's a comfort in that.
Ah, okay. So to recap, just where we're starting is we want to talk about how relationships don't fail, right? They just end. And that's it. So we think now that every ending should be considered a failure, or we think society says it, or we are taught to believe that. And we really don't think that's true. People come into your life for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime. And you just have to navigate through which one that maybe is. And so right now, when you look back on all of the relationships, friendships, jobs, things that you've had, and when we say relationships, we're not saying it doesn't need to be husband, wife. It
It's
doesn't
not
need
just a
boyfriend, girlfriend.
romantic
It doesn't
relationship.
need to be anything romantic. It could be a relationship or a partnership, a job, something in your life that was there and then ended. It's like, okay, I after, global pandemic, I had to leave Lifetime and it was a bad ending, but it wasn't a failure. Like, I was so sad, but you better believe, like, when I left my job after the pandemic, like, I wanted to go back. So sometimes things end not in your control. And I think we need to stop feeling like we have so much control. Like we were talking about this before when you're like, okay, just because you've been friends with someone for 25 years, it's almost like you feel obligated to stay friends with them. And it's like, that's
And
bullshit.
this may be against everybody's opinion, which is fine. I'm willing to be the odd man out. But we just spent a whole weekend really educating people and women on setting boundaries and saying, no, I will not tolerate this in my space. And so it doesn't just go to friendships because they have longevity. Longevity doesn't automatically mean that people are able to cross boundaries or be disrespectful. And the same goes for family. That whole, well, it's
Yeah.
your family. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay in a position that you're uncomfortable with or tolerate behavior you're comfortable with just because they're family or friends that have been there for a really long time.
The most toxic relationships sometimes are our families. And
Totally.
that is not fair that we feel obligated that we need to stay in them because they're blood, because I have better friendships than family relationships. And like that so this is a perfect example. When I was getting married, I remember I was like, I felt obligated that I needed to invite my family that I have not seen, Krissy, in years. Years. And I was like, "What the fuck? Like, I'm not gonna have a table of strangers at my wedding." And no offense, sorry. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm trying to be real. Like, if people wanted to stay connected, they would. And I know we're going a little bit like off tangent here, but I guess I
That
feel
was the
really like
point of this, I think. No,
emotionally
I think that was the
triggered
point
by
of this
it.
was that it opened up a lot of doors for us to speak about other things.
Yeah, like especially from this weekend, like there are a lot of women that talked about like they're uncomfortable with like relationships with their brother. Like it gives them and it makes them feel uncomfortable. So why do we have to be forced to stay in relationships that have an expiration, that have molded, that need to be removed from the refrigerator and then we're just like, we need to keep it there because no, it's got to go. Let it go."
Yeah, and I think that that's the key here is that there are reasons, seasons, and lifetimes for all things. It comes back to nature versus nurture. And also, as we evolve, especially as two people like we are, that we're constantly not searching, that's not the right word, but we are constantly going for more, growing ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Reinventing ourselves to become the best version of ourselves. And that takes a hard look in the mirror at taking accountability for the things that we like and don't like about ourselves. And that actually just brought up a whole point. I love when that happens. Thank you, universe. Is,
I love how you're talking to
I
yourself.
am talking to
We're
myself.
recording a
This is
podcast
totally me.
and she's
And like
talking to
I'm
herself.
driving my car, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah. And then I just have this full on conversation with
And you
myself.
gave yourself a verbal compliment.
Hell yeah, I did.
Like,
Okay. Yes.
good
So
job,
good
Krissy.
job. Thank you. I needed that reminder for this whole topic because this was
And I
part of
hope
it.
I really just threw you so off the loop
You
that you
did. Now I'm
forget
like,
what you're
stop it. I don't
saying.
want to stop. Stop it. I don't want to forget what I was going to have to say. And I don't forget. Thank you. Because I am fucking awesome. So,
Keep
but
going. Keep it going,
sometimes
Krissy.
people come into your life because they are a mirror of you.
Oh,
And
me?
so,
Is
well,
that
you're a good mirror. I think you're a good mirror. Then there's others where you look at the reflection, you're like,
Oh
ooh,
shit. Yeah.
shit.
Okay, I understand
I
where you're
don't
going with this.
love
All right.
that.
I'm good.
So
Okay.
I've been in relationships before with people where it's very like the chemistry, the magnetism is just so strong. And but I don't necessarily like the person. And that's going to sound really weird because they're like, why are you like
You're
magnetically
magnetically
attracted to
yeah,
somebody?
mirror
And
magnetically strengthened, but
honestly,
I
I've
hate you.
realized because a lot of the things that I don't like about that person is because it's things that I do.
Mhm.
And so, however, if you're not self aware enough to be like, oh, wait, shit, that's not really their shit. Yeah, like,
Mhm.
sure, that's their shit. But this is just a mirror showing me that I have things to work on, that this is something that I do and I really don't like it. So I had to find it within myself to really think about, okay, this person came into my life for a season and the reason to show me something about myself that I don't like that I now need to change,
Do you
that I
have
need
like
to
an
work on.
actual example? Or
Not not off give me another minute and then
okay.
I'm sure it'll come through. But that is a reason or a season that people will come into your life for
Yeah.
is to show you parts that you don't like about yourself and that you resonate with and that you're attracted to. And then there are people that will come in, like Marie for me, that came in to show me good parts, like good
Yeah.
mirrored parts of myself that I love.
So I have a good example of someone who came into my life for a reason. So when I was working, I was in a really bad part of my marriage, and I was like, and I say a bad part of my marriage because I believe that marriages are a unity, and I was in a really bad part of the marriage, like the wife part of my relationship. Like I was not being
Like
a
you
good
were
partner.
not, right?
I was not okay. And at that moment of my like figuring out what I was trying to evolve into or change or learn, I met this guy. And he was, I would argue, the male version of myself. And I was like, huh, this is weird. So, like the mirror. And then I realized very quickly that I befriended him so well. Like, this was a great relationship, friendship, nothing inappropriate, like, great. And literally, I befriended him because I saw qualities in him that reminded me of me. And it was the old version of me that I liked and I missed. So, the reason why he came into my life, I believe, is because he was reminding me of my most authentic self. And I liked spending time with him because made me feel like the old version of me. And I don't mean like this old version of me. We talked about that in a previous podcast. It's not like it's the Anastasia and Summer
Yeah,
one.
it's just the
It's not about,
authentic
yeah,
part
it's
of
just
you.
the authentic part. The one that you like really sit in, it's like a warm bath. You get in, you're like, ah. Or like when you drink coffee for the first time in the morning, it calms you, and I felt warm when I was around him. And I remember then going home to, my situation and not feeling the same, feeling prickly, feeling different, feeling like I was a different version of myself. And then I started realizing that it was my problem. I was a different version of myself when I was in my current situation, and when I was at work or with some other people, I was a different version of myself.
Right.
So this reason for me, I believe, was to show me who I was searching to become.
Right. And so in that situation, this person, which we're going to talk about platonic friendships because you brought that
Yeah.
up, is that this person for Marie was a catalyst for change.
Mhm.
And so some people come in and they show you how things could be or how things should be or what you deserve. And they may not be your person, so to speak, but
Yeah, no.
that person came in to shift something inside of you to make you go, to make you question that comfort situation that you're in that may not be great. And we talked about this weekend, but I call it the shitty diaper syndrome,
Oh, yeah, I liked that.
where, when you first,
I
I
don't know
mean,
why I said that.
we don't like shitty diapers, but you'll get why
I
this is important.
Hold on, before you shitty diaper talk, have you ever calculated how many shitty diapers you've changed in your life? Don't do the math. It's like over 10,000.
Well, you had an extra kid,
I did have an extra child. Thank God
which
I
we have to
had the
tell that story one day of how you not ha- we all
Oh.
know how that happened,
You
but
can tell everybody the story about
Wait,
how Marie got pregnant. You want to talk about that?
well,
No.
that's another day, but that's a whole story about how Marie had a third and was like, "Oh my god, I didn't know that this could happen when I was
Oh God.
breastfeeding and didn't
Yeah.
get my period." Okay, anyway, just so our listeners know, you can in fact get pregnant if you are breastfeeding and do not have your period. Okay.
I'm fine.
Marie's fine.
I'm really, really smart
Everything's
in a
fine.
lot of categories.
No,
I mean, I'm just saying that shut up.
it's totally fine.
We're
So,
moving on.
oh, we were back to the shitty diapers.
So
That's
anyway, we've
so
changed a
the
lot of shitty diapers, but we change so many shitty diapers because when you sit in a shitty diaper for a really long time.
So my shitty diaper syndrome is when you sit in shit for long enough, it stops to stink. It stops stinking, right? It doesn't smell anymore. You're just like, "Ah, I'm just here." And so you
You are used
rationalize.
to this ink, and I will continue. It's one of like my favorite Marie lines that I've adopted in the last couple months is you either normalize or ignore bad behavior or bad things in your life.
Right.
And I truly believe that. That shitty diaper syndrome is when you sit in shit, you stop smelling it. You are used to the shittiness. You're used to the pain. So it doesn't smell as bad as that initial when you walk into the house and you forget that you left wild caught salmon skin in your garbage can. Krissy and I walked into
And
my
I was like,
house.
Marie, you
It
either left fish or there was an orgy in your house.
There was a raunchy salmon orgy that happened in
Ugh.
my garbage can. It smelled like the raunchiest, disgusting
But you
vagina.
know what's crazy about it? Yeah, is if Marie didn't take the garbage out and she just sat in her house for long enough, she would stop smelling that,
You're right, yeah.
And so that's exactly what we're saying with relationships that are romantic, friendships, family. You stay in places long enough and that just becomes normal.
Yeah.
You don't smell the shit anymore. And so to bring this back with relationships is when somebody comes into your life that is a catalyst for change for you. Just like I may have been a catalyst for change for you, like we talked about on Anastasia and Summer,
Yeah,
right? With
totally.
with just finding some of that, sexiness back in your life and just finding some of that summer back in you, right? There are people that are catalysts for change for good things and bad, but they wake you up and they make you question where you are in your life, who you're with, who you're surrounding yourself, what you're doing for work. Does it fulfill you? Is it in alignment with your soul? Is this the relationship that you want, for the long haul? And we're not saying that means you just need to get up and leave, but
No.
it just means take account of what you want and where you are.
Yeah.
And are you really just sitting in shit or are you actually where you should be?
And it's like if you spend so much time after an expiration date, it gets worse. relationships don't have to be failed endings because you end them at the right time. It's like if you've overstayed your welcome, then things start to get resentful. Then things start to get shitty. Then things start to get really, really anxious, animosity. It all grows. And it's super unfortunate that how about we just end it when we know it's gonna expire before we start to get that hate word comes. Like,
That
I don't
messy.
wanna hate any partner. Like, I remember, Montana Boy. Like, Montana Boy,
Montana.
I love Montana Boy. Like, I will still 100% love the dating relationship we have because it didn't extend past its time. Right? It ended at a good time where we could still be friends. We could still talk. We dated for a little bit of time. We were both like, okay, this really isn't working for us anymore. And we decided maturely that this was going to end without it getting weird, without it getting hurtful, without it overstaying its welcome. And then I started to hate him because he started to treat me bad, because he started to, make me feel insecure before all of those questions. Like, I didn't have to ask any of it because he was just like, hey, like, this really isn't working anymore. So to this day, I love Montana Boy.
Right.
I have such a fond memory of he was definitely a reason and a season.
He was a
I call
catalyst
him
for
my
change. He was
catalyst
a
for change.
catalyst for change.
He was so great for me, so great in my life. And I literally will never look back on that experience and relationship with regret, with hatred, with misunderstanding. I will only like happily savor that relationship and I love that. But when people overstay their welcome and when relationships go on for so long that you become to hate the person, that sucks, man.
Well,
Like why? Why
and
can't you just end it in say like we're
be,
both done
be,
in the best way?
because we're in the society that somebody's wrong and somebody's right. And I don't think that. I think that there are times when love isn't enough, attraction isn't enough, and sometimes things need to end, like Marie said, before it gets super messy, before it gets to the point where, yeah, one is right as one is wrong. There doesn't have to be a right and a wrong. Sometimes it just doesn't work out because it was a season. It was a reason. And the longer you hold on sometimes, the more hurt that happens. Like holding on sometimes causes more pain than just letting go because it's that whole, I don't know if you've ever seen the meme, but it's a hand holding onto a rope for so long. And what happens when you hold onto a rope for so long? Your hand is just fried, like
Raw,
raw
yeah.
rope burn, right? But if you just were to let go, sure, there's hurt, there's sadness, but there's less pain
Yeah.
because you knew at that point there was expiration. But it
You're gonna
takes
eventually let go of the rope. Like the end result is the same. The time in which is you decide to hold on to it is the problem. You're creating more hatred. You're creating more pain in a situation that doesn't need
yeah.
to.
And
So why can't we embrace it? Like really, why aren't you right now wherever why aren't you just ending a relationship, a job, a situation, a friendship before it gets too bad? I truly believe it's because we think that endings are failures.
well, and
And no one
also
likes to fail,
the
but I
right
get I get it. But
the right choice isn't easy
no,
either. You
yeah.
know, the right choice oftentimes is not the easy choice. But also, I will argue that anybody that has had a role in my life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, I still, through a lot of personal growth, have so much love in my heart for them. So much so that even people that have really hurt me, if I've had love for you at one point in my life, I still do. I want to let you go with grace, with dignity, and with all the love in my heart that you go and live the life that you were meant to live.
Yep.
And maybe, and that doesn't mean that I have to be a part of it for you to do that. It just means that I at one point loved you. So there will always be a part of me that wants the best for you and wants to see you thrive.
But I would argue if you made that relationship that you're referring to, or maybe that situation, if you were to go past its time frame, you would probably not have those same feelings.
Well,
You don't want to end in hatred. Like so I'm trying to think of like the reason a season, right? Or a
Well,
lifetime.
talk
It's
about my
what?
ex-husband. So,
Okay.
I mean, we had been through so much together and there was a point after our marriage I disliked him very much.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people go through that after their divorce with little kids and There's a lot of hate and animosity that goes into that. But hate takes so much more out of me than forgiveness. And it wasn't that I forgave immediately or that he forgave me. Maybe he still hasn't forgiven me and that's okay. That's his stuff. But for me, I have gotten to a point where I can look back from that 30,000, foot view
Mhm.
and say, I am so grateful for the lessons I learned, the experiences we had, the children we have together, the co-parenting relationship we have now that isn't perfect. And a big red flag to me, to be honest, is when people when people talk about their exes and it's their ex's fault
I know. I was
for
just it's so funny that you're
everything.
bringing this
And
up.
I am like, hell no.
I am patiently waiting on this singular couch for Krissy to stop talking so I can talk about how I'm like, that's this. I was just going to say that. Like, I
Go
am
ahead.
not kidding. I'm literally, it's like, bothers me so much because it's either two-sided. It's like you blame the other person because you're so mad at that other person because they didn't end it or they have so much in it. Like, it's a conversation.
Yeah. What about
It is,
you?
what about you? Like, I don't let, I hate that. And, I would argue that my ex-husband right now still has so much hatred, and I hope one day, I really, really hope one day that he doesn't. I hope one day that he can understand the reason for me ending our relationship or for us both ending. I didn't end our relationship. These are conversations, these are situations, these are real life circumstances that when things end, it is a joint decision whether you're the one that pulls the trigger or not. Like, and a lot of the time, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, yes, but I don't want the repercussion of the other person's reaction. That's more terrifying. That's worse than just ending something with grace. There's no real grace, Krissy. There was there was no real grace in me ending my relationship. And I had come to learn that I either could stay and know that I was going to live in a situation that did not longer serve me. The end result was going to be the same. So it's like, if he's not going to pull the trigger, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm ready for the repercussion. And I'm just waiting for the day for him or I, for, anyone to be able to see that situation with ending in grace and understanding and forgiveness, not forgetting, but just like a clear understanding of things don't end because or things don't fail. They just end, and not every ending is a failure.
No, and I think that that whole letting go with grace thing, listen, I didn't always let go with grace. Don't get me wrong. That's a really hard lesson to learn. And a dear friend of mine who's a spiritual, medium and just spiritual life coach has really helped me with that over the last 3 years of really diving into that and just realizing that, to let somebody go with grace doesn't mean that there isn't animosity or hate or
No.
regret. It just means
But
that,
by the way, sorry to cut you off, but those feelings that are post decision are happening in the current
of
situation if
course,
there's an expiration. So it's not like you've now earned the animosity and hatred after. It's those things were still evident in the situation or in the job or in the relationship or in the friendship.
oftentimes they're
That's
worse in it.
They're worse.
Right.
Like, yes, you get animosity and hatred and yuck on the other side, but the reasons why is because in the relationship or in the friendship or in the job, you are already having those feelings. So that rope theory is you're going to fall no matter what. Why fall with more pain? Crawl down slowly, have a plan, have the conversations that need to be had, come up with a solution and a game plan. We call these things easy buttons and reset buttons, right? You can either choose an easy button. Easy buttons are things that you just go to that when you think about it, you go in the circle is it the issue still isn't resolved and they're oftentimes toxic behaviors of ignorance, right? Ignoring a situation, of using drugs or alcohol or, you know, anything
Sex.
to numb the reality is that's an easy button because ultimately there's no production and solution. When you pick a reset button, that's meditation, that's removing yourself, that's time, that's reading a book of like for development. It's a button that you press and you choose that comes up with a pathway of analyzation, thought, solution, all of those things where hopefully you don't have to go in this circle again rather than, hey, let's ignore it, let's numb it, let's drink, let's spend our time with friends and just not ignore our relationship. Let's talk about each other behind our backs to, those friends, all of those things. Let's just be shitty at our job rather than just calling it the way it is and saying it might be done here. So think about situations in your life right now. Like, Krissy, are you choosing right now easy buttons because they're easier? But ultimately, easier gets messier. It's like the boil the pot theory. Like, we talked about this with a woman on our retreat. She was like, I'm a fucking train wreck emotionally. And it's like, when you're an emotional train wreck, you're not just a simmering, boiling pot of water. What happens when you overboil a pot of pasta is it overflows and it fucks up your oven top, your stove top. It gets messy. Rather than if you were to just turn down the temperature, cover it, actually then take off the cover and let it go. It doesn't boil over.
No, and I would even say too, like remove yourself for a little while. Give yourself that space and that grace to figure out exactly what action plan you need to be able to do that. So that's the other thing a lot of people don't do is they don't just they make hasty decisions. They make permanent decisions on temporary emotion.
Yeah.
And it is like something that I used to do all the time. And I catch myself now where I'm like, is this temporary? Is this a temporary thing? Is this an easy button for you? Or is this really, really what you want? And I sit back maybe too long now because I like almost overthink it to some point because I used to be like 0% hypervigilant about anything and just be like, woo. And now I'm like,
Bye. Yeah.
okay, let me just take the wisdom that I have from those experiences, those decisions, and just sit back for a second and think about really like, is this my ego talking? Is this, an easy button? Is this just that? What are these feelings arising for, like bringing up for me? And then what do I need to take the action to? And is that removal of myself from a situation, a relationship, a job? You know, what is it for me? And that's where people just do that easy button and they avoid and they distract and they do that whole, sex, alcohol, drugs, working out can be that avoidant thing versus just looking in the mirror and tackling it head on and saying, what is it about this person that's a catalyst for change that's showing me something? What are they showing me? Or, what is this situation teaching me? Versus just going into that circle
Yeah.
that we just justify and we sit in that shitty diaper for too long. And then we wonder why we have a freaking awful diaper rash
Yeah,
and we're
right.
just in this constant turmoil
Doesn't
over and
smell
over
like
again.
shit anymore. It smells like acidic shit, which is really weird. It smells like vinegar shit. It's like
Like,
gross.
bleh.
Bleh. But like, you are always one decision away from a totally different life. One decision. And I loved your thing that you said the other day. It's like, if you were to turn the compass 1 degree, turn the compass 1 degree to the right, you end up, if you do that long enough, you are going to be on a totally different path, even if you made this small of a change, which is so cool. And like, you say, Krissy, a lot of like good shit. Like, Krissy, like, sometimes gives me goosebumps when she talks.
That's
It's
why I'm
like,
like, I am fucking awesome
I know.
when I talk to myself,
I
okay?
know. But really, you said that to me like this weekend, and I would literally was like, oh shit. Cause I said, like, you're always one decision away from a totally different life. You sneeze differently, and then your whole life can be different. You meet someone new, you end a relationship, you meet a new person, you go and read a different book and have a different mindset shift, even just a little bit, that your life can be totally different. And like that, and that's okay. You have to begin a new chapter, the other chapter has to end.
Yeah. And
Like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
no, it's not. It's fine. It's okay. Like, we have one life. And don't you want it to be the most special and graceful and least, hate-filled life that you have? And we're not at all talking about, this is after effort. This is after conscious effort, trials, conversations. We are just trying to normalize and call bullshit on is endings don't need to be failures. And so if you're trying right now to figure your way out of this tunnel or this path, is that's okay. And we want you to feel empowered to make a change that is difficult. Everything is hard. You just choose your hard. Staying in a marriage that is miserable is hard. Leaving a marriage is hard. Pick your hard. Not working out not working out and having health issues and not taking care of your body is hard later. And working out is hard. But choose the least hard one. You know what I mean? Like, choose the one that's going to be less hard in the long run. Like
Yeah, I
people,
always say eat the elephant first.
yeah,
Always. For me, if I have a list of 15 things to do and there's one thing on that list out of that 15 that scares the shit out of me, you know which one I'm doing first? I'm
yeah.
doing the scary one
It's
first.
funny you say elephant. That's such a I say eat the frog.
Who? What?
Eat the frog. We said that in the Motivation versus Discipline
I don't
podcast.
even know.
That's an
Whatever.
actual book.
It's a
Eat the
book.
elephant. It's a large trunk to swallow.
I like the girthy ones. So with that,
Wait, hold on. Before we end, I want to. I'm really wondering. Do you have anyone in your life right now other than me?
who calls me on my bullshit?
No, who you really believe that they're in it for a lifetime?
I do. So, it's actually a platonic friendship I've had for a really long time. Um,
Like they're not going anywhere.
no, we'll call him October. And he's just well,
We're
there's a
gonna.
lot of reasons
Okay.
for it if you knew our relationship. And, our significant others like know each other's significant others, and it's truly just, my soul is so fulfilled in our relationship because he embraces all of those sides of me. There's many, right? And just has such a way with words that really speak to me that allows me to feel seen, understood, heard,
So
and
you
just
feel like this friendship, you are able to grow together.
yeah, and that's what
Like,
we do. Like
yeah.
the premise really our 90% of our conversations are surrounding leadership, growth, relationships, like how we can be better. And those are the relationships like I have with you that I value so much because those are the relationships that help me look in the mirror and say, what would Marie do? What would October do? What would
Mhm.
they say to me?
Right.
How can I push myself here
And do you
to be
feel
better?
like that foundation of that relationship started off like what if the foundation of that relationship didn't start off the way it did? Do you feel like you would have still gotten to that point or maybe and is that do you feel like that's the it's like when you're growing a plant, if you immediately put a plant in like the a bad dirt like plant, it's not going to grow no matter what. So like do you think the foundation, the structure of that relationship is what has been able to sustain the wind, the natural disasters because your house is still standing so strong.
Yes, and I just feel like for me always my sometimes you are just drawn to people, and I don't mean physically, like I
Yeah.
don't mean, because of how they look. I just mean like their energy, their aura. His was just something that pulled me in. And the more we talked, I was like, this is why I was so drawn to him because I just feel like we just have a soul connection.
Yeah.
That's not romantic. It's just a soul deep connection where we grow together. We can come to each other for the hard things. We can push each other. We can say, I'm going to call you on your bullshit. That's just an excuse. This is how we can grow. And so I love, and it happens quite often if you're open to it, where your soul will be like, this person is going to play a pivotal part in your life. But for like somebody like you in October, I do feel like those are like longevity
Yeah.
lifetimes where some really are seasons and reasons.
Yeah, and I believe that as you grow together or you grow apart is those foundation they change. The foundational, what structure. So I'm going to reference my best friend. We've been best friends since we were 11 years old. We have fought countless times but fought with grace, and we don't spend too much time together to create animosity. We are able to break away and come together because too much closeness, too much space, too much is overwhelming sometimes. So it's like rather than really being in a relationship, maybe you're thinking about your partner right now, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your best friend, your roommate, all of those things. Space heals and space makes time. So me and Danny in this aspect, like we're able to grow together because we cherish when we're together and then we have enough time apart that makes us feel really good about when we're together because I
Mhm.
I truly believe that if you spend too much time with someone, shit starts to go sideways. Secondly, is our foundation. We are our friendship is structured on truth and authenticity. I feel comfortable enough to tell her anything because I mean it in the most caring and loving way. We just had a really hard conversation about 2 nights ago, and I said some things that you would have thought, like, really made her upset. But I said it in such a way because I care about her. Everything I say is out of love and friendship and the best for her. So even if someone else were to like hear this conversation from an outside perspective, they would be like, "Can you fucking believe what she just said?" And I'm like,
Can
"No,
you
no,
believe
no.
Marie?
Can you believe what Marie said again?" But what I'm saying is our foundation from our friendship, our values in our friendship, our relationship, our lifetime worth relationship is built on the same ideals: authenticity, trust, never, never not tell me something because you're trying to protect me, because you're, no. And so those values have changed because we've talked about it.
Well, because you're growing together,
Yeah.
and that's the key here is when you it's okay for you to outgrow people, places, and things.
Yeah.
And so if somebody is willing to grow with you and they're on that path, that relationship will sustain a lifetime. But it's those ones that come in at a point in your life where you're, at at the ground level, right? And then you continue, for one, for two, for three, and they stay at that ground level because for whatever reason, that's their stuff, right? That's when those are those seasons and reasons, right? Those lifetime relationships, in my opinion, are going to be the ones where you are both on the path to growth
Hmm.
and you both have the ability to be truthful to one another, be authentic, and have each other's like back, but also know to be truthful, even if it hurts.
Yeah. And
And
to check in.
and right, a
And
check-in.
to check in, to ask the right questions. Like, I argue that one of the main reasons why relationships that I've experienced ended is because I didn't ask, or I wasn't off, like, I didn't ask the right questions and had the right conversations at the right time. That's on me. I don't know why I didn't. It's because probably that relationship, that friendship, that job had an expiration date, and I was kind of done asking. And
Mhm.
that is okay too. I made a conscious decision not to ask anymore. I gave up. Also, not a failure. You giving up on something that is worth giving up on is not a failure. It's just an ending. And so it's okay to throw your hands up and say, "Fuck it. I'm done here.
The
We
Brooklyn came out.
gotta go." What?
The Brooklyn's coming out.
Yeah. Fuck it. We gotta go.
We
Get
gotta
the fuck
go.
out of here. Oh, guys, you don't know my accents. I sometimes throw a good British one in there.
Oh God.
Cricket's giving me some really good
Crickets giving you some good
some
the
good
motorbike.
British, yeah, motorbike. Um, but let's be real. Endings are not failures. And if you feel like right now you are in a situation that needs to end, and if you end it, you are failing, you are wrong. It is okay to end things that no longer serve your soul, your happiness, your confidence, all of those good things, those good feeling things that we strive to have in our life. If you have relationships or friendships that are bringing that level down for you, get the fuck out of here. You are no longer allowed to pay rent in the space in my life. You must go. It's not a failure. It's a conscious good decision. And I encourage every single person who's listening to this podcast who has an itch that they're trying to scratch it, talk about it, bring it up. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be hurtful. It's going to be confusing. It's going to be all those bad things, but it's already what you're feeling. So decide. One decision away from a totally different life. Endings are not
And
failures.
every beginning is another beginning's end.
That's it. That's all we got.